Okay, well, it looks like it's 10 after, and I think we'll just go ahead and get this party started because I'm probably going to run out of time. So welcome, everybody. This is third period, and it is top classroom activities for middle school US history. If you don't teach US history, then you're welcome to stay, but this is really focused on our United States through industrialism programs. And I appreciate everybody sharing their favorite activities in the chat while we were waiting. Thank you. Let's see here. So this is probably the third time you've seen this, but if you could please use the chat and Q&A and then change your chat settings to everyone so that everybody can see your question or your comment. And then, of course, you have the closed captioning tool if you'd like to use that. So a little bit about me. My name is Kim O'Brien. I'm coming to you from San Jose, California, South Bay represent. I am a former classroom teacher. I have 15 years of teaching experience, all in middle school. But my 15 years span from 1995 to 2023. So I've kind of seen it all. And when I started my student teaching in 1995, I was using the TCI binders. And Natasha's heard me talk about my love for the binders. It was like a revelation. And I really do think that using TCI from the start helped turn me into the teacher that I became. Ready to take risks, try something new, teach outside the box, and have fun teaching. Not only, I mean, it's of course fun for the students and engaging for the students, but it's also more fun to teach that way. So that's kind of my TCI story. And then we have Natasha, who is our co-host and manning the chat and in the Q&A. Natasha, can you just introduce yourself?
Yeah, I am also a former middle school teacher, and I actually started teaching the same time, same year I think as Kim. And so we have very similar stories with discovering TCI and just how much it helped me enjoy teaching so much more when I would see my students were engaged. So yeah, so I am here to help Kim out, answer questions that come up in the chat or the Q&A. So just let me know if there's anything you need.
Thanks, Natasha. So moving on, I'd like to just get a feel for for the attendees, for you guys. How long have you been teaching US history with TCI? So have you been teaching it as long as I have? Is this going to be your first year? So you can scan that QR code with your phone, or Natasha's going to put a link in the chat. Or you can put it in, you can put it in the chat. This is for a Mentimeter. So use that code. If you do scan the QR code, then we can have some data to look at too, which is always fun. So again, the link is in the chat if you'd like to vote with the Mentimeter tool. This is kind of a fun tool to use, especially for online presentations. But I also see some people are saying 15 years. We have a lot of new to TCI teachers this year. Awesome. I love that. I love that you guys are here at the summit and learning, getting a sneak peek at the program. That is such a good use of your time this summer. So this year, most in the majority or the plurality rather is first year TCI teachers. I love that. But we also have 11% who use the binders. So we have everybody and we have everybody represented here, which is awesome. I have a couple more questions for you just for fun. What's your favorite unit to teach? Now, if you're new to US history, then just pick one that you think is going to be your favorite. Or just or you don't have to answer, but just to get an idea of what people are liking. So, and these are just kind of approximate units: colonies and revolution, constitution, early republic, westward expansion, northeast and south, or sometimes we used to call that unit division or Civil War. I also love colonies and revolution. For me, it's kind of between colonies and revolution and Constitution because I am a huge fan of the Constitution. I mean, it's kind of nerdy, but I was a poli-sci major too. So I love the Constitution. And I see that nobody's choosing early republic, first five presidents, or northeast and south. And to be honest, I'm with you on the early Republic. It was not always my favorite. So just for more fun, what is your least favorite unit to teach? Because I mean, you know, that it's true that we have things that we love. We have some lessons that we love to teach, kids love, and we just have fun doing it. There are others that maybe not so much. It's a struggle. And it's so funny because you know what? I feel so validated with this early Republic first five presidents. For years, my teaching partners and I would, every time we went to plan that unit, we would just be like, what can we try this year? What can we try this year? Like trying this and that, documentary projects, all the different TCI lessons. And so today I'm going to share with you two lessons from the early Republic unit that you might be able to put into your curriculum this year. Okay, let's go ahead and go back to here. And then here's our agenda, welcome and introductions. We're pretty much done with that. And then I'm going to share with you some of my favorite classroom activities. This is like my personal favorites that I've used over the years and that I love doing and the students also love. And then I also would like to get your input and you share what your favorite lessons are and any tips and tricks or modifications that you use for any of these classroom activities. And then finally, at the end, we will give you that feedback form that you can submit to get your professional development hours and to get the swag. So here are the TCI middle school US history programs. We have, hopefully you can see the one that you are using. California is the one with the locomotive on it. And then everybody else uses the one with the Manhattan Bridge on it. California has its own standards and framework requirements. And so even though the content, it's covering the same content, there are just some small differences, but most of it is the same. The classroom activities are almost all the same. So without further ado, here's my list. It was hard for me to choose the top ones, but I'm going to just go over these and we're going to pop into my account and just kind of show you around each of these. There's something from every unit except for, I think, the Civil War unit. And it's not because I don't like the Civil War, but I think it's because everybody kind of does their thing with Civil War. And I feel like when you get to Civil War, it's like, okay, you're kind of got that down because I think it's one of the favorites for people to teach. So before I get into the program, though, I would like you to log into this, or not log in, but just open this Padlet. I started a Padlet and it has the details of all of these lessons and my tips about it. But and it's yours to keep, so go ahead and bookmark it. But what I'd like you guys to do is to add to it. So feel free to comment on one of my posts or and Natasha put the link in the chat as well. So feel free to use the chat rather than typing in the URL. But I'll show it to you here. So I've just listed all of the lessons that I'm going to talk about today and kind of just some tips or options that have found helpful to implement it in my classroom. And what I'm hoping is that you all can add posts. So all you need to do is click on this plus sign. If you haven't used Padlet before, you can click on the plus sign and then tell me the lesson title and then say what you like about it, how you adapt it to your classroom, or any way that you've changed it to make it yours. Because I think it's really learning from each other, I think is really the best resource and the best PD that we can have. And if we are able to kind of get some ideas, even if you don't do the same thing, you get some ideas and then you take that idea and you run with it, right? Another way, I'm pretty sure that you can just double tap. Yeah, so you can either hit the plus sign or you can double click on the background and you can create your own post. So during the session today, after the session next week, if you find something that you would like to share, we would love to have your tips and tricks on here as well. So please make use of this. With that, let's go ahead and go live. So I am going to not go over a bunch of navigation for this one, just because I really want to focus on the classroom activities. If you need more support with navigation and just how to get around your account, you should check out the professional development section. And the Navigate and Plan with TCI is really the best course you can take, especially if you're new to TCI. So please check that out when you have some time. Those courses are great. You can jump around. It's like a tutorial. So here we are on our homepage, and I wanted to share with you first one of my favorite lessons or activities in every unit is the geography challenge. And does anyone out there do the geography challenges in the chat if you just want to say if you do them or not, if you've used it or not? Geography challenge.
She loves them. So we've got one for
Awesome, Melissa.
yeah.
Awesome. Oh, great. Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so I feel like the geography challenges are so much more than just labeling a map and memorizing the locations and the landmarks and the physical features. It's really the students get to know the geography, but then there's critical thinking that goes along with it, and they are more evaluating and analyzing how the geography affected history. It always starts with an introduction video. So let me just play a few seconds of that.
The 13 states that independence brought together to form the United States of America had very different physical and human geographic features. Most of the southern states were larger than most of the northern states. However, a state's population often had little relation to its size. Only white men could serve in government, but they made choices for a much larger population than themselves. Women, enslaved people, and indigenous peoples had no say in the political process. For the colonists who had representation, differences between the state's geographic features raised basic questions about what form the nation's government should take.
So that is the introduction to the Geography Challenge video. And something that I just recently realized, and Natasha, you might laugh at me, I don't know, is that the narration for the video is the exact text from the section of reading. I know, when I found that out, my mind was blown. I never knew that. This, and then also the text, this text is also in the print textbooks. So it's here in the digital, in the kids' digital platform in yours, and then it's also in the textbook, as is the notebook that goes with the geography challenge. The notebook pages are in both the print notebook and in the digital notebook. They're the exact same. So it's just it does an introduction, and then there's some maps that they can use for the tasks. These are enlargeable if you click on them, and then you can use the magnifier tool. And in the textbook, I think they're quite a bit bigger than this on paper. And then, so they go into creating the map. So the first thing they do is label, identify some features, some political and sometimes some physical features. And then they go into applying geography skills. And these questions are really more about critical thinking around the geography. It's like, what were the nation's largest 5 cities in 1790? In what states did enslaved people count for 30% or more of the state's population? So they're really kind of analyzing what's, the geographical context for the history.
So Kim, question in chat.
Yep.
Do you prefer to have them do the digital map or the hard copy in the interactive notebook?
That's a great question, Katie. I personally, when I was doing the geography challenges, I prefer to have them do it on paper, just because sometimes these maps get really crowded on the digital platform. And I think after COVID, my teaching team and I were really trying to go back to more paper because the kids had been on screens so much. But really you can do it any way that you want to, because you have that, you have the option of doing it either on paper or digitally. And I mean, that's obviously the same thing for any of the TCI activities. Yeah. I see your comment, Katie. Yeah, I think a lot of us were doing that. So that is the geography challenge. So hopefully you guys can start using that and for in place of your geography. Now I'm going to go to another lesson. And I'm going to head over to the Colonies and Revolution unit and toward independence. This activity is like a town hall meeting where students it's a response group activity, and students are put into groups of 3, and they read and learn about the events leading up to the Revolution, the Stamp Act, the French and Indian War, the Proclamation of 1763, Townshend Acts, and then together as a response group, they decide, they talk about the pros and cons of each from the perspective of a real person, a real historical person. So let me show it to you here. The preview is about a memo that the principal has just sent out and telling the student body that they have to now pay 10 cents for any photocopied quiz that they have to take in class. And then you have a student get up and start collecting a dime from each person. It's super fun. They play along pretty well. And then you debrief that. And let me just take you straight into the activity. Here, the essential question, of course, is why was there an American Revolution? The processing and the assessment are going to circle back to that, which is what the essential question always does. So here's the first one. They have to read about the French and Indian War, Proclamation of 1763, answer some preliminary questions about it. How might a patriot view this scene? How might a loyalist view it? So you're kind of setting the stage for them for different perspectives on each of these events. Now they're going to be put into groups of 3 here, and each group of 3 is assigned to one revolutionary figure, and it's either going to be a patriot, a neutralist, or a loyalist. And as they learn about each of these events or acts, they are going to try and decide how their historical person would have reacted after the event. So they receive a roll card. Here's an example, Joseph Brant, he was a loyalist. And then here is the definition for each of these roles. And then together they look at their roll card, they figure out who they are, and what they believe, just their background, and then they start reading about the events, the Proclamation of 1763, Stamp Act, and Quartering Act. So they do those 3 events, they read about them, they take notes on them, and then what are some arguments for and against each one? So this is preparing them to be able to provide an argument in class during a class debate. So they have all of these arguments, and they're working together with their group of 3. So here's the stage for the first round. This is the year 1767. Since the end of the French and Indian War, the British government has taken many controversial actions in the colonies. And you go through the slides like you would in any classroom activity. Here's our first town meeting. Evaluate the actions, and this is the one that they're going to be talking about because they just read about those 3 things, and these are just step by step. And then you can either have them debate and have a spokesperson speak for each one, or you can have them vote, skip the debate and have them vote if you're running short on time, or have them vote and then defend their placement, however you'd like to facilitate that in your class. And then there are 2 more rounds. So the next round is about the Townshend Acts, the Boston Massacre, and that's round 2. Same thing, then they debate, they vote, and defend their placement. And then the third one is the Boston Tea Party, the Intolerable Acts. And that's the third town meeting. Oh, wait a minute. No, that was the Lexington and Concord is the last one. So then there's Lexington and Concord, town meeting 4. So what I like about this is the reading is chunked into the activity, so they're not having to read it all at once. They're reading about these two or three events, and then they're discussing it and debriefing it. And they're supported too. So they're in a response group activity is usually a small group work. And so then they're filling out their notes together, and then they're debating it as a class.
And would you find like with kind of a 15-minute period that you would do one topic like a day, like and then move on to the next one the next day?
That's a great question. I think that in a 50-minute period, which is what we had, I feel like once you got rolling, you could do 2 rounds because and it depends because some of the reading sections are a little bit longer than others. I've also had there have been years where we actually had the students, and you can definitely do this, do all of the reading and the notes first, over maybe 1 or 2 class periods, and then do all of the debates together during one class period. Then you're debating just during one class period. But it's a lot of reading and taking notes up front, So you can do it either way. It really just depends on how much time you have and how your students as well, right?
Yeah.
So that is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I could say love those options. Great ideas.
Yeah. Thank you. And then of course there's the processing and the dive deeper option exploring literature. So let's go into another lesson, one of my favorites. And I just need to double check my notes to see where I was going to go next. Oh, the Bill of Rights. This is another activity. And I feel like, it's funny, when I was going through and making my list, I think I was really attracted to the activities that have been almost the same from the beginning, like the original activities, because this is another one that was one of the original, and I'm showing you my version. One of the original supplemental activities that came with the program is back in the 90s. And if anyone's done this one, it's students, first of all, they're going to learn and take notes on the Bill of Rights, all 10 amendments. And then they are going to debate about real Supreme Court cases. So here's our preview. It's a parent's constitution. So we're going to read it. And I'm just kind of going through these pretty quickly because I want to make sure that I can share with you more stuff. How did you feel about this? Let's share as a class. How do you feel about this parent's constitution? And then would you make any changes to it, right? That was another. What are 4 things that you would like to change? Because we're thinking about amendments. You found things you wanted to change and identified additional rights you think children should have. Similarly, many Americans in the late 1700s identified important rights and freedoms for individuals that were not protected. So it's just background on how the Bill of Rights came to be. So here they are. They're going to start doing the reading and taking some notes, read the introduction and be prepared to respond. Generally, when we would read the introduction in class, I usually read the introduction out loud to students because I feel like it gets them into the content a little bit more than having them read it on their own. And then here's the just notes on the Bill of Rights. What does the Bill of Rights contain? Who took the lead? And then we'll go into the activity. And this is another response group activity, and it's called, Do They Have the Right? Students will work in teams of 3 and read about Supreme Court cases related to rights and freedoms protected by the Bill of Rights. You will then debate your answers with other groups before learning the outcome of each case. So they're given the facts of the case and then need to decide if a right was violated or a freedom was violated and why. So here's the first round, and it's about the First Amendment. So they're going to read about the First Amendment, take some notes on it, create a drawing in the notebook, and then there's a case in there. And then here's round 1. And if you've done this lesson or activity before, you will know that this Tinker versus Des Moines case is one of the original ones that Bert put into the original program. And this is about Tinker versus Des Moines. And this was Two students wanted to wear a black armband to school to protest the Vietnam War, and they were told that they couldn't wear it. So were their rights violated? And then so students are going to talk about it and then decide, like take a stand on the issue. If your group thinks the students have this right, stand up and say they have the right. If your group thinks the students don't have the right, stand up and say no, they don't. So then they're getting up, they're voicing their opinion. Debate the issue as a class, take a vote on the issue, and then find out what the Supreme Court decided. And here's the decision. Of course, as we might remember, in Tinker versus Des Moines, the court voted in favor of the students, that their First Amendment right was violated. And as you can imagine, the students in California, US history is 8th grade. I know in some states it's 7th, but they absolutely love this activity. And at the end of the class, when we're done looking at the cases, they want to look at more Supreme Court cases. It's phenomenal. They get so into it. Some of them were like, well, how can I learn more about this? Well, and I say, well, you could consider going to law school. Like there are some kids that have told me they want to start law school after this activity. And then here's another case. This one's about the Pledge of Allegiance. And then I actually added this case to my slides. Now, if you're new to TCI, you probably don't realize this yet, or you might not have played around with it, but you can actually customize your slideshow. You can add slides, you can delete slides. And I went ahead and I added this case that happened in 2020 about it's Mahanoy School District versus BL. BL were the student's initials because at the time she was a minor. She posted on her Snapchat about her anger over not making the school's varsity cheer team and with F-bombs. And now she was at home, or she wasn't at school at the time, and it was after school hours. The school kicked her off the cheer team. And then the decision came down, I think, in 2022. So I went ahead and added this one to my slides. And because I knew actually a couple of years ago when it came out, I was like, oh, this is such a great case. I mean, it's social media. The kids are all over it. Now, I don't know if they still do Snapchat very much, but Instagram for sure. So I wanted to add this one. I went in and I found a picture. I just changed the, I added this in, I copied a slide. And I added a picture. And I just added the case because it's one that students really enjoy. And then this is the round. So the round one is about the First Amendment, right? So then there are more rounds. Round two is about the Second Amendment, Second and Third Amendment. And then here's some more cases. And the fourth. So this one is also another really good one that they love. It's about search and seizure of student property on campus. They get so fired up. And then I think this was about drug testing of student athletes. So as you can imagine, this is very engaging, and it actually might be one of the most engaging activities I've ever done with students. So again, this is the Bill of Rights active lesson. And then just if you try to make your own slideshow, sometimes it's hard to find once you've made it. It's under my slideshows. Okay, moving on. Another one of my favorites, and I'm so glad I have time for this. Let's see, it is political developments in the New Republic. This is from First Five Presidents / Early Republic lesson. Oh, thanks, Natasha, for adding that in the chat. Mahanoy versus BL, I think. So this one is, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. This one is in the Early Republic, and this is about the development of political parties and the debate between Hamilton and Jefferson. So this is a super fun one as well, and it's completely different. This is an experiential exercise, and where students they take notes on different issues, and then they do a heads-up debate, and pretending that they're either Hamilton or Jefferson. Let me show you the slideshow. Here's the preview. And the preview is two campaign songs, one from George Washington, and it's Hail Columbia. And then they kind of just talk about, let me just play a few bits of it.
Hail Columbia, happy land, hail ye heroes, heaven-born band, who fought and...
So then they discuss the tone of the song. And then here's the Jefferson song.
While some on rights and some on wrongs prefer their own reflections, the people's rights demand our song, the right of free elections.
So they're comparing these songs. This is the preview. They're comparing these songs. This is from the 1800 presidential election. What are three adjectives that describe the song's mood? According to the lyrics, what were the issues of the 1800 election? In what ways do you think the nation changed? So I don't know if this is kind of an aside, but when you see questions like this, where there are three of them, they are usually spiraling in complexity. So this is a perfect example. What are three adjectives that describe the song's mood? Anyone can answer that, right? Then we're going to turn it up a little bit. According to the lyrics, what were some of the issues? And this song was called Fair and Free Elections, so they know that right away. And then we're asking them to make a prediction or to draw an inference. In what ways do you think the nation changed? So this is in almost all of our classroom activities. When you see three questions like that, they're spiraling in complexity by design. So here's our here's where we get the introduction to the lesson. The academic bridge slide is shown in the differences between these two songs. The nation changed significantly in its first decade. In addition, two major political parties emerged, despite Washington's advice, right? The Federalists and the Democratic Republicans. In this lesson, you'll learn how the Federalists and Democratic Republicans differed in their visions for America. So here we go. We're just getting some base knowledge here. Read the introduction. Why might George Washington have been reluctant to become president? So this is about the presidency of Washington. And then what issue divided the first Congress? And then this is the first cabinet, Washington's cabinet. Section 2 is again about Washington. This one is about the Whiskey Rebellion. And then his farewell address. So we're just getting some background knowledge for the Hamilton and Jefferson debate. So here's the experiential exercise. Today we're going to have a talk it out debate. You'll represent the perspective of either Jefferson or Hamilton. As your assigned historical figure, you will debate key issues. Before we begin, let's gather some background. So of course we have to gather some background information from the reading. This is the desk setup for when they do the heads up debate. And I think I put it in the Padlet, but usually for this one, we would have them do the notes the first day and then the debate the second day. You can't do it all in one day. And I never assigned homework. We only just did it in class. So the desk setup just all in a line and facing each other. And that's in the teacher prep as well. So here's where they start taking their notes. And their notes, which is really nice, is on the paper notebook, it's in talk bubbles. And it either says Hamilton or Jefferson. In the notebook, it's just a text box like this. So you need to really make sure that they are putting it in the first person, because they're going to be using these talk bubbles in their debate. This is one lesson that even if you usually mostly use digital, you might want to consider printing out the paper because of these talk bubbles, and then they're going to use it when they're debating. So they're going to read section 3. Section 3 is all about Hamilton's view of his personal background, his view of human nature, government, and the economy and foreign relations. So they're all taking notes on Hamilton's viewpoints. Then section 4 is the same thing about Jefferson. Again, the talk bubbles. And then here are some portraits of your assigned historical figure. These are portraits. To be honest, we had never done these, but they're fun. I think some people have used them, but I always used it as a time-saving device to not use it. But they're there if you want them. Kids like using them. It's fun. Now let's begin. So now they've come back the second day, the desks are lined up, they have their talk bubbles ready to go. There's also a handout, I think it's handout C, and it's sentence starters for it's like debate sentence starters. So they'll have both of those. They'll have their notes and then they'll have the sentence starters. If you're representing Hamilton's perspective, stand up and recite the Federalist slogan together. So you have all the Hamiltons stand up. Born to rule, we know what we need. With a strong central government, we will succeed. Now, they don't do it great the first time. And so, we want them to get into character. So, and I try to have them read it chorally so that we're saying it all together. And then I dramatically slap my hand on the desk the first time. And it hurts if you do it too hard. So you might want to warn them if you decide to do that, but they get really excited for it. Now sit back down. So you've gotten all fired up and then they tell them to sit back down. Why am I not advancing? Okay. Now all the Jeffersons stand up. And here's our Republican slogan. We know what we need from day to day. Don't try to rule us from far away. So, and then they sit back down. Now keep in mind, they're going to change perspectives every so often. So, they'll get both viewpoints. Now let's debate 4 issues from the perspective of Jefferson and Hamilton. The first one is the view of human nature, and that's the first one that they took notes on there, Jefferson's and Hamilton's views of human nature. Let's begin the debate. And here are the sentence starters, the debate starter. It's also on a handout if you'd like to have that. Hamilton's perspective. Hamilton's all stand up. Read your prompt aloud together. Jefferson's perspective, stand and read your prompt together. So Hamilton starts, people are selfish. For that reason, we can't give too much power to the common people. And again, I have them read it all together, all in unison. And then Thomas Jefferson starts his, but you'll see the common people are the best suited to govern because, and then they have to look at their notes and finish the sentence. And then Hamilton will respond with whatever they had written in that talk bubble. So each round only goes for maybe 30 to 60 seconds because they don't really have that much written down that could go for longer than that, but they really get into it. So there's round 1, issue 1. Issue 2 is the best form of government. So that's how big the government should be. Views on the economy. Are you going to base that on industry or agriculture? And so they take turns starting the debate as well. Views on Great Britain and France. Now let's discuss it. Here's the debrief. And by this point, they are really fired up. They want to keep going. I cannot tell you, every single year, they've always wanted to keep going. Some kids leave class and they're like, are we going to do this again tomorrow? I'm like, no, we're just doing it once. And then the rest of the lesson is about the presidency of John Adams, the election of 1800, and the 12th Amendment.
Kim, when the kids are doing kind of that face-off debate, how do you encourage them to really use facts and evidence, from the text when they're arguing and not just kind of off the top of their head?
That's great question. Well, and sometimes they do embellish a little bit, but they've actually, and let me show you where is it? I have a sample here from, this is what the notebook page looks like. So when they're taking those notes about Hamilton's viewpoints and Jefferson's viewpoints, I keep reiterating, you need to fill that up because that's what you're going to use in the debate. And so the more they have written down, then the more they're going to talk. But on the other hand, and to your point, Natasha, the point of this article is to just see a position. There's no, they aren't using evidence per se in this experiential exercise, but they're using the information that they learned from their notes. Awesome. And then here are some pictures of my students getting into it. You can, it depends, some of them are much more animated and physical, and it gets really loud, but it's so much fun. Let's see, where am I? And then the processing for this activity is also really fun. It circles back to those campaign songs. The students are going to now write a campaign song for their candidate in the election of 1800. And this one is probably best done with a partner or even group of three, because sometimes it's hard to think of a song on your own, but I feel like this is a great processing activity. So hopefully you like that one. And I have one more for you that's from this unit, and I'll just go over it briefly because I want to get to one more that I just absolutely love, and I'm a little bit short on time. So a growing sense of nationhood. This one we had overlooked for many years, and it's because it's the culture standard. It's about American culture and establishing an American identity. And, with limited time, you're like, oh, we don't, I'd rather teach about the War of 1812. I'd rather teach about this. But one year we decided to try something new. It was one of those years where we were kind of tired of what we were doing with this unit, and it turned out to be really fun. On its face, it is a 3-part classroom activity where, and let me see the preview. The preview is the Star Spangled Banner. So again, it's about establishing an American identity in the early part of the 19th century. So they're going to listen to the Star Spangled Banner. How does it make you feel? And just talking about establishing that American identity. What did it mean to be an American in the early 1800s? It's about the era of good feelings, developing a nation and land of differences, the American system. Oh, I forgot the American system was in that too. That's all in there. And then the activity itself has 3 phases. One is an art exhibit. Another one, and then there are placards at Art of the early 1800s where they're interpreting different artworks. Let me see if I can pull them up really quick. Yep, so we have some landscapes, we have some folk art, we have portraiture. And then, whoops, that was the wrong one. The next phase is, so here's the notes for the early American art. This is when they're doing the art. Work with a partner, use information, blah, blah, blah. This is basically a skill builder, a social studies skill builder. Phase 2 is a cotillion. Did I skip the one that says phase 2? No. We'll attend a cotillion to explore one part of what it meant to be an American during the early 1800s. So this one in my menu bar will not go away. Here we go. Here we go. And this one is about early American music. So we had art, now we have music, and then the students are given some dance moves and they have to choreograph a dance. This one is really fun. The dance moves that are given on that TCI has, these are the examples that they give. So do this, do this. Now, kids were kind of confused as to what, and I said, just make it your own, just make it work, do your thing. And they did. And then here's the music that you can play for the cotillion dance. So they're going to circle around, and then when your group is called, go perform your thing. And then the third phase is a literary gathering. So we have art, we have music, we have literature. And then they read excerpts from famous pieces. Washington Irving, Catherine Sedgwick, Davy Crockett, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. I think the California edition might have a different author besides Catherine Sedgwick, but don't quote me on it. So here they get excerpts from literature and they take their notes. What's one work by this author? What was a characteristic of their work? Why did you choose it? Wait a minute, what does that say? Matching letter, excerpt, and why you chose it. So they have to match the excerpt to the style. So there are these 3 phases. And what we decided to do with this, and you probably saw that on the Padlet, is that, where do I have it? We ended up, actually, let me show you the slide instead. We ended up changing it to be stations instead of doing the whole group each day, like the whole group doing art, the whole class doing the dance, the whole class doing literature. We set up 3 different stations. And it just felt better that we could break it up that way. And then the dance groups ended up being smaller. So it was only about a third of the class, so that each day there was one group and they went outside and they rehearsed their dance. So here's one of the dances. This brings me so much joy. Every time I rewatch this.
The kids are never going to forget this day.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, so this is like Natasha said, they are, why am I not full? Why am I undoing full? There we go. They will not forget that, right? Remember when we had to do that dance in social studies? And it was so fun for each group to watch the other groups. And then look, this was a boy heavy class, obviously. But to see like 10 boys doing a cotillion dance, I mean, come on. So it was pretty fun. That's how I changed that. And just looking at the Padlet here, I noticed that nobody has added to my Padlet. And maybe you're just trying to pay attention and you're going to add to it later, but please do. Oh, I see a couple comments. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let me show you one more activity that I cannot leave without sharing with you guys. Now, I think that my tabs are messed up. And it is called An Era of Reform. Has anyone ever done this? Oh, you're right, the Bridgerton music. I mean, I don't know if students really should be watching the Bridgerton because I don't know if it's family friendly, but if anyone's into it, then you could find some Bridgerton music for sure. So here's the last one I want to share with you. I'm almost out of time because we need to get to the feedback form and everything, but I just recently tried this activity and it was so much fun and so engaging. So this chapter is about the reform movements of the 19th century: prison reform, education reform, women's rights movement, and the abolitionist movement. But the best part of this activity, so they're taking notes on all those reform movements, but the response group part of this activity is so fun. The preview starts with a song called "Let Us All Speak Our Minds." We'll just play it. I guess there's a long intro, but I wanted to just give you a little clip of it.
Men tell us 'tis fit that wives should submit to their husbands submissively, meekly. Though whatever they say, their wives should obey, unquestioning, stupidly, weakly. Our husbands would make.
So the song is pretty much fire as far as I'm concerned, and it's from the 19th century. And then it tells you this, it was written in the 1800s to protest the unequal treatment of women. And then it tells you it's about the women's movement and all the other reform movements. Most of this lesson is about the other reform movements. So they're going to take notes on the spirit of reform, transcendentalism, the Second Great Awakening, prison reform, education reform, the movement to end slavery, and the women's rights movement. Now, what's great about this is that this response group activity, you could actually use it as a standalone activity once you've already taught about the reformers. So you could actually just add this part of it to your current curriculum. So there's two things. There's a reflecting on the Declaration of Sentiments. They're going to be put in groups of 3. And there are some excerpts from the Declaration of Sentiments. And the students are going to read those. They're going to interpret them into modern English and then decide to what extent that issue has been redressed today. There's also a second handout about fact sheets. It's a fact sheet on women in the United States today. So it just kind of is some facts. And feel free to add more facts to this. And that's one in it. I'm at noon. I can, but I'm going to just quickly finish this. So let me show you what it is. So they're going to start with excerpt A. They're going to rewrite it in simpler language. He has never permitted her to exercise her inalienable right to the elective franchise. So you're going to actually need to tell them what that is. Vote. He has compelled her to submit to laws in the formation of which she had no voice. So they're going to discuss, has this been redressed and to what extent? They're going to choose somewhere on this continuum where, to what extent it's been addressed. And then we're going to debrief with the class. So the spokesperson will come and drag their number to, this one has been somewhat redressed because women do have the right to vote, you know, whatever their reason is. And they're going to use the evidence from that fact sheet to support their placement on the continuum. So, and then there's two more excerpts. Excerpt C, you could add an excerpt, you could change an excerpt if there's an excerpt that you'd rather use, then you can use that one. And then, so the whole overall question is about in what areas have women made the most progress since Seneca Falls? In what areas have they made the least progress? They debate when they're looking at those two handouts, one with this excerpt and one with the facts. The debate that you can hear and you walk around is amazing. They get really into it. So that is the last one I'm going to have time to share with you. But let me go back to my Padlet. There's still more here. If you want to look on your own, I chose Mexicano Contribution to the Southwest because it's a skill builder. I love a social studies skill builder. If you were in my first session, navigating your account, I did talk about this one a little bit, but I am a sucker for a social studies skill builder. I love putting the placards up. I have some tips here for you. Project a timer on the screen. And I usually put the placards on the desks. In my classroom, I don't have a lot of wall space, so I put the placards on the desks, and you can either have the students move, get them out of their desk, or you can have them pass the placards. Warning, as you might imagine, when they pass placards, they sometimes use it as a Frisbee. So you might want to model that. So that's the skill builder. And then I think someone in our intro was talking about the assembly line. This is another OG classic TCI activity where they're in assembly line, and then the assembly line simulation also incorporates labor conditions, the effect of immigration, and the push for workers' rights. So this is a huge favorite. These are the activities that kids just remember. So thank you for indulging me and letting you share my favorites. Let me go back to my slides now since we're afternoon and go ahead and share with you guys I did put a slide here, Kim, how can I fit this all in, right? So in each lesson, there are pacing options and ideas for quicker coverage. So a lot of them sometimes are use an alternative preview. You could jigsaw this activity and, just different options specific to the lesson, eliminate some of the placards, whatever it is. It can give you some ideas on how to more quickly do the activity in class. Another idea, and I mentioned this before, incorporate the interactive portion of the activity into what you already do for that content, right? So take that Hamilton and Jefferson debate and just add that portion into what you already do. Another idea is to try one new classroom activity per unit. Find one that you think is interesting or you think the kids would like, and just try one new activity per unit. And then moving on, keep adding to the Padlet. Like you guys have it, so bookmark it and keep adding to it, ask questions, share tips and tricks. I'd love to get some of your input and feedback onto how you change lessons and adapt them to your classroom. I think that probably most of you would. Support every step of the way, and you've probably seen this. If you have a TCI account, you get an email every month. I didn't really realize this, honestly. You get an email every month with a newsletter. The newsletter actually explains new features that new features that have been added to your digital count, or new features that are coming up, or sometimes features are changed a little bit. So I highly recommend popping into that newsletter when you get it. There is in-app professional development. Especially if you're new to TCI, that's going to come in clutch for you this year, because there's a lot in your program, and you might need a little refresher on how to create an assignment or how to use the test builder. And then finally, we have the Teach with TCI Facebook group, which actually I'm the moderator of. So if you have a question, join our TCI Facebook group. You can post a question, other teachers will answer you, give suggestions, ideas. So we're trying to develop a community of TCI teachers. So please join the Facebook group if you're on Facebook. I mentioned the professional development. And then we also have this new TCI coach program. So if you love TCI as much as I do, and you could be a TCI lead on your campus, or maybe you already are, you could definitely earn this TCI coach badge. And I think that, Natasha, is there a link for that as well?
I'll share the link for it. The program is just getting started. There's an in-app PD course that's available, and a handbook that kind of takes you through it. But it's one of the pieces. We love it if we can have district coaches at individual school sites to help those new teachers or teachers that haven't used the program before.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I think everybody's going to benefit from it. So it's just one of those, and it's like Natasha said, this is brand new. So tell your department, tell your team, and hopefully somebody, you can get somebody on your campus to be, maybe it's you, to be the TCI coach. And then of course we have a drawing for a $50 Amazon gift card if you post on social, either on Twitter/X or on Facebook, and use this hashtag. You will be entered into a drawing to win a $50 Amazon card. Finally, without further ado, here is the feedback form, and I think Natasha dropped it in the chat as well. And if you fill out the feedback form, you'll not only get a professional development certificate for 3 hours of PD, but you'll also get this swag, which is kind of cool. It's an insulated beverage / wine. I think it looks like a wine glass to me. But you could put any beverage in it. You could put coffee in it if you'd like. And you will get that mailed to you.
We'll have you all set for your staff happy hour or neighborhood happy hour.
Love it.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's a great idea. Yeah, and everybody's going to be like, hey, where'd you get the TCI cup? I swear, people will start asking you. With that, on behalf of all of TCI, I want to thank you guys for coming today. It's been so much fun. Reach out to us with any questions, Facebook group, help desk, keep posting on the Padlet, and have a great school year.